works. Come on. All right, here's our notes for lesson 35. Perfect passive verbs. They're quite logical, but they're new. So you have to give them like that 5 minutes of them feeling confusing. Trust me, after you do a couple homework assignments, they'll make sense.
You always say that.
And I'm always right. So this is going to apply to the perfect, the past perfect, and the future perfect. Perfect active is always coming from which principal part? First, second, third, or fourth? Third. So let's just remind ourselves of that. Third principal part, third principal part, third principal part. And what were our perfect endings? They were istiit, emissistis, errant. Okay? That was beginning of 7th grade. Then toward the end of 7th grade, we learned that the past perfect, you took the third principal part and you added eram, eras, erat. And the future perfect, since it's future perfect, you take the third principal part and you add, anyone remember? Future form of to be? Ero, eris, erit. Oh dear. So if you need to review that, the gold sheet I gave you yesterday has it all on it. Yep. So, Fiona, come on. The passive voice is going to follow a similar logic. But instead of the third principal part, if you want it to be passive, you're going to go to the fourth. We're finally going to use that fourth principal part that's been sitting there waiting for us. So logically, active is third, passive is fourth. And we're going to add a form of to be, to each one, depending on how in the past it is. We'll add sum, es, est, sumus estis, remember, sum, est,
Sumus estis. The 7th graders were seeing that.
Yeah, coincidentally, they're learning that yesterday. Past perfect, you want it to be past perfect. So you're trying to take a past form of to be. So the same as you used eram and eras here, you're going to use it here after the fourth principal part to make it past perfect. Future perfect, you're going to use the fourth principal part, and since you want it to be future perfect, you're going to take ero, eris, erit. Squeeze in the English translations because I find that it helps people have them written. Perfect is has, or ed, or did. Past perfect sounds almost the same, but it already happened, so I already had done that. Oops, sorry. Future.
I don't have any room either.
Put it on the margin, whatever. It's your notes. Sorry, I didn't make you more of them. Future perfect will have. So, if you're going to make those passive, what form of something do you add to make something passive? Add a form of to be. So you can write it if you want or just out loud. Passive of has would be has. He has done his homework. I'm sorry. He has done his homework. The homework has
done by him.
So has been. He had already done his homework. The homework had already been done by him. I will have done my homework would become the homework will have been done by me.
Sorry.
Let's see how that works in an example. Skip down to Porto. Portat is he is carrying. Someone do the imperfect from way back when. Portabat. Try to keep up with that. Portabat would mean what?
He used to carry.
He used to carry. He was carrying. Good. I'm going to abbreviate. So instead of a BA for future, Portabat becomes Portabit. Instead of he was carrying, it's he will carry. And if we want to make these passive, eris, ter, so portat becomes portator. Instead of he is carrying, instead he is being carried. Good.
Didn't we kind of already do this?
This is review.
Oh.
I just find if I don't review it, the new stuff doesn't make sense. Instead of portabat, to make it passive, you'd have, that's right. Instead of he was carrying, passive. Used to be carried works, or was being carried. Either one. Future, we have porta bit, make it passive.
Porta future.
Yep. Instead of he will carry.
He will be carried.
Nice. So as Horatia pointed out, that was all review. Now let's do the perfect active tenses. Which principal part? Portavit, because I go to portavi, the third principal part.
Hold on, I'm sorry. A second.
It'll stay there. I'm glad you're being careful with your notes. He carried works. How else could you do it?
Darn.
I have one right here, actually.
I'm here just you. I'm not thanks.
Thanks, Fiona. Portavit would be he has carried. 5 more minutes. We're doing well. Portavorat. Throw it further back in the past. Past perfect. He already had carried. Then suppose you put it in the future. Portaverit. Yep. And by the time something else happens, he will have carried. Again, as Horatia pointed out, everything we just did is review. Though it might be rusty. Now we're going to add 3 new tenses that are passive perfect. Which principal part do I go to for the passive? Fourth. Porto, portare, portavi, portatus. Right, this is the new part, so just keep writing it down and don't panic. It'll make sense eventually, hopefully. So we go oareawi atus, so we get portatus. So write down portatus for all 3 of the passives. Glancing up at the top as needed, how would you say he has been carried? Which form of to be do I want? Est. So let's use est. It's not an ending. It's a separate word. So do a little space between them. Portatus est. That's he has been carried. How would you make it further in the past? He had been carried. Portatus erat.
Is the next one erit?
And the next one will be future perfect. So erit. Now we'll do the English once you have a chance to write this down. So he has carried active would become he has been carried. Trust your patterns. Portatus erat, he had carried would become
He had been
carried. Portatus erit, he will have been carried.
Again with the spotlight on my desk.
All right. If you want to move forward one, just move my papers. So if it were me, I would probably bold those 3 as the only new ones, so you could look them over. And then summarize for yourself. Well, actually, we kind of summarized above. Do you see how this is a summary of what we did here?
Yeah, this makes sense.
Flip to the back, and I find that doing examples, we'll come back to it if we have time, but I just wanted to start the back together. I totally find that when I do examples of something, it starts to make sense to me, so let's just move right through and see if we can do a few. Which principal part do you always use? 4 passives. Fourth.
Will there be quiz on this tomorrow? Always expect.
Not like this, if I did that. Mr. Beyer was loved by hippos. I'm masculine, so it'd be amatus est. But if I said she was loved by hippos, can anyone predict what I'm going to change? It's going to be amata est.
That makes sense.
It's completely logical. We've just never seen it before. Amata, if she was loved. What if it was loved?
Oh, so it would be neuter.
It'd be neuter. So what's the ending for neuter? Us, So someone say the whole phrase. Amata est becomes amatum est.
That's so awesome.
It's completely logical. Make it plural. The girls were loved would be amatai, like IR and asazis.
Wait, I don't understand the endings at the end of.
We're matching the gender.
Oh, okay.
He has been loved. He's singular, though.
Amatos.
Good. Amatus.